There we go. Hey, Brett, how's it going?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How are you?
Good, doing well. Top of the morning to you.
Yeah. To be honest, I get up pretty early, so it's not too terrible for me. I got up, myself a workout in, and get my kids some breakfast. So life is good. And then my wife gets them off to school and
Oh yeah.
keep the family train moving.
Awesome. Hey, I don't meet a lot of people that like to work out in the morning. I do. And so, it's kind of rare that you find people that like to get up at the crack of dawn. I love to get in the gym at 6 in the morning. And the funny thing is there's hardly anybody in there. You get the place to yourself, at least over here.
Yeah, and to me, I mean, you're busy like I am, man. I mean, I run our scrap yards, and I've got two young kids at home. My wife is a working mom; she's a school teacher. So I mean, it's like I said, I say it's assholes and elbows all day, every day, just busy, go.
Yeah. That's a kind of a little bit of quiet time for you, I guess. I don't see you tearing off, leaving at some late hour of the night when you're done at work and trying to get into the gym, right? I imagine that's family time, right?
No, I'm coming home to hang out, at least squeeze
Yeah.
in whatever I can time wise. The good old fashioned work-life balance, which sometimes more work than life, and sometimes more life than work. But it just depends on the week, depends on the day, depends on what's going on. So it's just it varies.
Absolutely. Well, we could get started. Hey, everyone, I want you guys to meet a friend of mine, Brett Ekart, is the CEO of United Metals in Idaho, and United Metals Recycling specifically. And sorry, are you in Boise actually, or?
Yeah, our main non-ferrous processing facility is in Boise, Idaho. My office resides at our very original location in Caldwell, Idaho now, but for years when we built that facility, my office was in Boise.
Awesome. Yeah. And so yeah, speaking of that, just before we get into this, to tell us a little bit about United Metals. In fact, that was kind of one of it maybe does lead in the first questions. I'd love to hear a little bit about your history, because I know you've got we've talked a little bit about it. So maybe we just start right there. Tell us a little bit about your introduction to the scrap world, and tell us a little bit about your history.
Okay, I'm a third generation in the scrap industry. My grandfather started it in 1972. So I was kind of born into it. Super humble beginnings, just good old school scrapyard in BFE, Idaho. Just family business, aunts, uncles, grandma and grandpa worked there when I was growing up. I grew up in the office with watching Saturday cartoons with my grandpa, because everybody else was at work. So eventually I was old enough to be able to work in the recycling center and kind of be able to handle the aluminum cans and whatever else, pay some customers. And I started cleaning brass. At that time, we didn't have an export market for insulated copper wire. So as I got older, I became kind of the wire stripper. So we had the wire stripper with the two rollers, the one with the wider spaces for your big MCM, and then the smaller ones for your THHN, smaller wire. We stripped everything. Everything was done by hand. Now it's fairly automated. We have some wire chopping lines, but it was all manual labor at that point in the game. And then so just graduated my way through the yard. I'd done everything from run a cutting torch to you name it. So I'd left to go to school, went to school, got my undergraduate degree in business, came back, worked full time with, by that time, my grandfather had retired. We were partners with Schnitzer Steel. We became partners in 97. So we were, 50% owned by a publicly traded company. My mom, my dad, and myself, just went to work. At that time, 20 something employees, and just started really grinding together, built the business. We added facilities. I think we have eight yards, a couple auto salvages. And I retired my parents in 2016. We bought Schnitzer back out of the business.
Okay.
We became 100% family owned again. And here I am, man, just
That's awesome.
doing what we do, you know.
And you have a hauling company as well, right? Or
Yeah, we have a trucking company. Yeah. I dressed up for the event. But our trucking company, we run our own trucks. We run basically what we call over the road trucks, which is our long haul stuff that hauls scrap outbound. And then we have internal trucks that are moving scrap into our yards. So we run 40 something trucks, shuffling stuff in and out of the facilities.
Now you guys I never really knew much about the lay of the land in Idaho. I know that everything past the Continental Divide, typically, if it's going to go export, it's going out to the West Coast, obviously.
Correct.
But what does that look like nowadays, like say in the last few years? I mean, what kind of materials you got that are going export, and then also logistically, how do you handle that? How does that work? How do you get it?
So for us, the way it works for us is that we have because we are pretty far inland. I mean, it's tougher for us to get containers. So the way it works for us is, we identify either transloaders or brokers on the Northwest coast. Sometimes, down in California, the Southern West coast. Mm-hmm. But mostly for us, because it's beneficial for our trucks, is we go to Portland or Seattle, Tacoma, is the primary ports we use. So what we do, because our trucks and trailer combinations, we can haul 68,000 net. So we can go up to 105 gross. Okay. So what we do is we basically can ship 3 containers worth of material to the West Coast on 2 trucks, 2 truckloads. Okay. So basically 344s, right? So we'll load we'll load our trailers up, we'll put 68,000 net, ship them to the coast. And then basically that load will get broke down into 3 containers and move from there. So,
right. And do you so you're able to get that? So you get 3 containers worth in one load, or are you running like
2
tandem? Okay.
Yeah, we get in 2. So we get 2 trucks is 2 66 to 68,000 pound trucks. We're loading 44,000 pound containers usually, unless we're shipping batteries. And then those containers then can go to 55. So then that's 1 truck.
And what kind of materials make sense to go that direction, to go offshore, basically?
Export material for us right now is irony stainless, bales and boxes, batteries. Mm-hmm. We ship, say, old sheet is a good export item for us right now. Loads easily, transloads easily. Okay. We ship alternator starters, mix electric motors, small electric motors, medium electric motors, transformers. All that stuff is material we're boxing and moving to the coast, and moving through brokerage houses. So I'm not dealing directly with the consumer in the other countries. I'm basically just dealing with brokers here in the United States that either have a transloading relationship on the West Coast, or some of them actually have their own transloading facilities. It just depends on the broker, depends on the situation.
All right, and yeah, you were told me that indeed you work exclusively with traders or brokers, and you really love that relationship. And I'd like to learn more. Like what I mean, obviously, there's a lot of yards that would love to go direct, and there's a lot. I used to be a trader and broker myself, so I know that the guys in the middle earn their fair share the hard way. Well, yeah, how does that look from your side? How does that work for you? And I think you told me before, you're not super interested in going direct. So tell me why.
I don't have a big desire to go direct. Because we don't do enough volume to move the needle of any one commodity. So I feel like there's brokers out there that have certain commodities that they're very strong in because they have good consumers for those items. Whether it's alternators and starters and motors, whether it's an irony, dirty, contaminated brass or batteries. I mean, there's certain items that people have very good homes for that are going to move enough volume that they command a better price and a better relationship than really I can ever command or get from where I'm at, right? So that's one component of it for me. The second component is the service. So what my preference is I'll take a cent or two less. So I'm not having to deal with the bookings. I'm not having to deal with the logistics side of getting the container moved in and out of the port and delivered to the consumer, go through the CCIC inspection or whatever inspection is, depending on the country. And basically there's that service component of what the broker provides that I value. I don't ever have any desire to be a broker. I don't have any desire to be a buyer of material from other people's yards. So I've always just been very strong at staying in my lane. I pick my lane. I say, this is what I'm going to be good at. It's going to be buying, processing, and getting it to the port of delivery, and then letting other people kind of take the ball and run with it and do their job and what they're good at, right? There's people out there that are excellent with the banking. They're excellent with the logistics and the containers and the shipping and finding the right consumer. And they have that, they can speak 4 languages, and they just have that grease that I don't have it for that part of it, right? So I recognize that, and if I'll maybe adjust my buy price down a cent or two so that I can then pass that cent or two on to the trader and let them go do their job. It's kind of my concept, how I look at it on my end.
Awesome, Brett. So you're working with these guys, and you're still moving quite a bit of volume, off the West Coast. It's maybe not moving the needle. I'm not sure in what reference to what you mean there, but
as far as like I don't move 100 loads of batteries a month.
Yeah,
right?
I gotcha.
but you know what I mean? But there's might be the guy that, as a broker, he accumulates all of these and he has a pricing power to go move 100 loads. I might move 1 or 2. So he's going to be able to, or she's going to be able to facilitate that consumer relationship better than I ever will.
Got it. Exactly. And how, so over the years that you've been like closely involved in this part of the business, tell me a little bit about like, how do you, I mean, of course, nobody's perfect, and you run into some problems with, I'm sure in the past with a trader or broker that didn't work out. Is there, I don't know. You seem to have pretty good luck, but are there also some pretty bad stories in the mix as well? Or are you able to always have you just always had really great luck, and you've always dealt with great traders and brokers and never had any huge breakdowns,
Yeah, well, you know as well as I know that some of the best lessons in life are some of the most expensive ones, right?
I know that one.
And the ones that you've kind of ran into, and you're like, okay, I won't do that one again. I had a recent one on Ferris, but which is more of a domestic company, but it's a lesson that I learned, and it was expensive, and I've kind of worked my way through it. But as far as on the export side, I have had pretty good luck, but I vet our traders pretty, deeply, right? And by vetting them, I mean, I spend a lot of time talking to other traders, and the best traders, the best brokers, in my opinion, are the ones that don't have a problem telling you who else is good, right? Because they know that they have a certain, not everybody can handle every product and has a great home for every single item, right? So if I'm dealing with somebody on a certain item and I say, hey, I've got XYZ amount of this, but I know you're maybe not super strong in sealed units. Who is a good sealed unit trader that's trustworthy? Who can I talk to? And that's kind of like the old school way of doing it, right? Like we were kind of talking about is it was all word of mouth. It was like trying to find someone you could trust and then letting them tell you who they could trust. And it was very a lengthy process, and you really had to kind of develop that, versus, today where it's so much more transparent, or it can be so much more transparent. And you can actually, that information is kind of at the tip of your finger now, versus before, old school, like when I was starting to sell 15 years ago, 16 years ago, I had to go out and look for those traders, go out and look and go to Isery and shake 100 people's hands, and then go with my gut and hope that I swung and hit, and I didn't miss. And I think, it's been a process, but I think that's one of those things I've always valued about the right people, is they're never afraid to tell you who's good in your industry, regardless of whether it's scrap or buying a used car. If you're good, people will tell you, go see that person. They're good. They're good at what they do.
Right.
And there's a value to that to me.
So what you're describing there is basically, what it sounds like to me here is that you don't really like to work with people that kind of silo information. You prefer people that show their cards a little bit, that are more open.
Yeah, because I feel transparency is, when you're transparent across the board, people want to do business with you. Because they know that you're going to be, the right person knows that they're not the answer. They're not the Swiss Army knife of everything. I mean, a Swiss Army knife has a screw, it has a knife, it has a toothpick, but it's not the best screwdriver. It's not the best knife. I'm looking for the best knife, the best screwdriver, the best pair of pliers, right? Like, and that's not all in the same, everybody's got their kind of wheelhouse.
Right.
And if you, as long as you recognize that, then other people, and you're more willing to tell the next person, hey, there's a better screwdriver over there. Like that's the guy, that's the gal that's going to take care of you for that item. Go use them. They're trustworthy. They're good to go. But you have to figure out who before you used to figure out who you could trust to kind of find that information out for you, but transparency wins in my book.
It saves us so much time, and when I started brokering first and then trading scrap, that was back in 2004. So it's like 18 years ago, right? 17 years ago. And man, I tell you, it cost me, I calculated at one point like about $50,000 of mistakes to get to where I had a decent network. And essentially that was just trial and error. It's like you said, you go to a conference, you meet people, you look online, you give a few people a shot, sometimes you miss, sometimes it costs you, a bunch of money, and you move on. But at the end of that process, which was the only way really that I could, when I got into this thing, but at the end of that process, you paid a bunch of money in losses, but you've eliminated some people, and you've still got in your group there, a few people that are solid because you've done business with them time and time again already, right? And that's a very expensive way to build up your network in this business, I would say.
Absolutely. Yes. So, which is why for so many years, people guarded that information, right? I mean, there's no doubt in my mind. I understand why, because it took people years, and they spend a lot of money, trial and error, going through those tough lessons, right? So everybody was very guarded about, who do you use? I was just talking to my dad about this. My dad hadn't been to some of our yards for a while. I mean, he's retired, and I was just talking to him about this the other day. We're driving down the road, and he's like, and he goes, it's kind of crazy back in the day. Like, everything was so secretive of who you sold to, who are you dealing with, and who was buying your material, who's buying your competitors down the road material, because everybody wanted it to be their guy, and I looked at it more of, as I kind of came up, I looked at it as, I want to tell people who I'm dealing with, because I want those people to be successful, right? Because if you're successful, let's say you're my broker, you're my trader, right? I want you to win business, because I want you to make money, right? Because if you make money, now all of a sudden my bill isn't as hard to pay, right? So that's true. I'm going to get paid because you're making money, you're doing good, you're successful, you're finding better markets for the material. All of a sudden you can command a little bit better price, because you're actually, you've got a little, something that could move the needle a little farther, right? Yeah. Now all of a sudden you're winning. And if you're winning, you're going to remember who took care of you and who helped get you more business. Now all of a sudden you're winning, so I'm going to win more. And it's kind of that circle
Awesome.
that everybody's looking for, right?
Yeah.
But the only way that happens is if you actually promote the people that are doing good. And that's what I'm trying to do. And that's kind of just kind of reverse engineered the way I think people should look at it.
Yeah, it's funny because, well, I mean, the way that you're running your business is the way that I think our industry would. Well, I think that if everybody ran a business like you did, we would thrive as an industry. I feel like that that we need to think more about how can we add value outside of just the contacts we have. Like it's not just, if all you got at the end of the day is just these secret contacts and that's all you got for a business, and what are you doing in business? Like that's not it. There's a lot more service and value behind it. Like don't like try to keep that information in the silo. Be more open. Definitely applaud and let everybody know that you got a great supplier, you got a great buyer. Help them out. And also, by the way, I feel like that what happens as well is not only can they pay your bill, as you said, because they're doing better, but it kind of, in a way, it kind of creates a sense of obligation that, man, Brett took care of me. He helped me get this deal. I mean, that's that one up. Next time that you're like neck and neck with some other supplier, you're going to probably get the deal when the other guy won't, right? So it just makes
it's relationships, right? Like the scrap industry has evolved over a lot of years and things have changed, but one thing that still hasn't changed is it's a very relationship driven industry. Absolutely. Relationships are like the backbone of what we do. And I've always felt in a relationship, it's a 50-50 deal, right? I mean, my wife and I split a lot of the tasks, Sometimes she does the heavy lifting, sometimes I do. But ultimately, the goal is to find that sweet spot of where you're both doing, an equal amount of work and contributing an equal amount. And business is no different. Like, I want our brokers, our traders to earn their money. I want them to go to market with our material and try and find the best home and get the best price. Like, there's no doubt about that. Like, I'm not going to let you off easy, but I'm also, if you do the job, I'm also going to make sure that I do my part and I tell people about you. Right. Yeah. And I think I was having dinner last night with a trader and I said, if you do somebody a good job, they'll tell like 3 people. Right. But if you treat somebody shitty, they're going to tell like 100. Yeah. What's the difference? Like if we could flip that deal and say, hey, tell this equal amount of people the same. If you do a shitty job, tell 50 people. If you do a good job, tell 50 people, like if you could just do that, I mean, that's going to help a ton, Yeah.
And also I think that, because, everybody, the statistic, says that people are 10 times more likely to complain than they are to actually praise. Right. And we're all guilty of this. I mean, in our personal lives, like I get these surveys from hotels, from Airbnb. My wife is actually, this is quite ironic, but she was fussing at me on the car ride when we were in Italy because I wasn't taking the time out to leave reviews on these places that we stayed in. She's like, well, if you're going to complain one time, then you need to also leave good reviews as well. And I'm like,
good for her. Yeah,
that's I know. But the beautiful part of that is, I was like, you call me out. That's my whole business over here, and I'm being lazy in my personal life.
Yeah.
So I think it's important, man. I think it's important. We live in a different world nowadays, right? I mean, like without question, like information is much easier to obtain. There's more of it. The times have changed, like the days that you're describing, what your dad was talking about. That reminds me of like the scrap yards that I still see this day with the huge walls outside because nobody wants you to know what they got inside and behind the walls, right? You're keeping secrets. But man, nowadays you got drones, you've got satellites, you can't really hide. But like as time goes by, there's going to be more and more transparency. And we have to figure out like what, if that's the new game, then what are the rules set new game? And I think you've already stated part of it right here. It's now like we understand that people can see who people do business with. Why don't you start praising the people publicly that do a great job? They'll be looking at like, well, where's that seal of approval from Brett? I didn't hear that Brett was saying, you're so good. Why didn't Brett say you're awesome?
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah. And you have to actually go and encourage your suppliers. I mean, if I was a trader, I would spend an exponential amount of effort, encouraging the people that I knew that I've done a good job for, and I've kept my word. I've done everything you've ever asked me to do, to just give me a review, whether it's a review on Google, whether it's a review on TradeFox, whether it's a review, it's an email that I can kind of reproduce and put out there and say, from a legit, somebody that doesn't mind having their name on the bottom saying, hey, I deal with XYZ trading company and they've always been good to me. And that carries weight, I think that carries weight with other people out there looking to sell items, and that's not going to deter some of the shady scrap people out there, that are, telling you they're going to ship you 80% brass and they load it with 50, as a trader, you have to kind of go through and vet some of those individuals as well. Right. And that's a whole different process. But I feel like the trading community, and I don't know, I'm kind of maybe speaking out of turn a little bit, but I feel like there's a lot more communication on that as well. Like, hey, watch out for so-and-so over in, New Jersey, because they're going to sell you a bill of goods, right? They're going to take some pictures of material and it's not going to be exactly what they said it was,
Yeah. See, I wish there were many, many times that I wish I would have had that advice when I was buying material. Before it was, really everybody's keeping their cards close to their chest. They're not given, unless you're a good friend of theirs, they're not going to tell you the best suppliers, and they're not going to tell you who the worst suppliers. And, that was kind of a wake up call for me back in like 2009 or so, when I was a victim of fraud, and, I lost a ton of money, and I was reflecting on how the industry is. And, I was talking to people about it, and one guy that I know, he said, well, the problem is, it's like, to be honest with you, if I'm your competitor and you go and deal with a bad supplier, hey, that's better for me, because they're going to stitch you up like they did me, and at least we're going to be even, and maybe you go out of business. And I was like, man, that's bad, man. I know, that's just business. You got to be more shrewd, and but no, that's not okay, man. I think we got to watch out for each other a bit. We all need to help each other stay out of these problems, basically.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's where you develop your network of, traders that, like you said, like if I was to be a trader, I would look for other quality traders that had great consumers for items I didn't, right?
Right.
And then I'd really just say, okay, like, I know you're legit. You probably know which companies that you're dealing with are legit, but I have a good home for these 3, 4, 5, 6 things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to focus on that home and focus on that material. Can you help me find people that might be suppliers of that material? Maybe not suppliers of what you're looking for, but then help kind of identify who those good processors, producers are.
Right. Yeah, well, tell us a little bit about what I found interesting in our conversations that we've had so far, is that you come from the old school, but you're very new school. In fact, I even estimated your age about 10 years younger than what you actually are when I found out. It's because you're a pretty millennial guy, it seems. You have a good grasp of technology and social media. How are you leveraging everything social media? Like, what kind of, in your normal business, I mean, you've got a TikTok channel, you're all over LinkedIn. That's how I got to know you, actually, from your LinkedIn following. I saw all of your posts and stuff. But maybe if you have some tips to share, or maybe could tell some stories about what's working for you that other people could, that aren't familiar with, like, how to use social media, could actually embrace that for their own businesses.
I think the way I started on LinkedIn was just kind of telling our story of our company, right? And because it's something I knew, it was something that was genuine. It was something that, I didn't have to pull any punches on. I was proud of our history, our heritage, where we came from, and, and then I'm pretty unafraid to post, what's going on, as far as, if we wrecked a truck, I posted, we wrecked a truck this week, and it was a shitty week, right?
Yeah.
If we had a great week, if something good happened, I wasn't afraid to post that. But really, it was just that was my way of communicating with people as I was trying to develop more opportunity for our business. I just said, I'm gonna have to go out and maybe and post stuff that maybe others might think is a little more, you know, they're not willing to risk it, or they're not willing to take the, you know, they're afraid to post stuff that maybe makes them look like in a bad light for one or two people. But I think if you're just genuine and it's work, like I think people get fooled by how much work it actually is to post and to communicate and on a daily basis, right? I mean, people ask me, so who posts all the stuff out from your account, right? And I said, oh, I do. Like anything that comes from my name, my account, like that comes from me, from sitting in my chair with a cup of coffee or whatever. If it comes from me, like it says Brett Ekart, that's coming right out of my cell phone or my laptop, right? Now, if it comes from United Metals or United Hauling, from our company accounts, we have people that are out there kind of helping us generate content to produce it and to basically round out the narrative, you know, of what we're doing and communicate with the outside world of, hey, if you give us a chance to supply you with scrap or to supply you with transportation via our trucking company or pipe, then, you know, here's what you can expect. You know, here's what you can expect from us. And I think it's almost makes you hold yourself accountable as well. So if I tell you I'm going to show up with XYZ type of this truck or whatever, or if I tell you that I'm going to send you this grade of material and I'm telling people who I'm sending it to, then that's my way of keeping our team accountable, because I'm pretty much putting my name on it, right? Saying this is how it is. And I don't want to be made to look, you know, like I'm full of shit or, you know, not going to stand up to our end of the agreement. So it's kind of an accountability measure internally, but also a way of getting, you know, just a small company out in Idaho, a little exposure to, you know, a huge industry nationwide and even bigger industry, you know, worldwide, and kind of a way to kind of solidify your place on the map or in the industry, by being willing to communicate, you know, your own story.
So we got some construction outside. So I'll give you my perception on that. I kept, I'm not a person. I'm on LinkedIn a lot. We do a lot of posting, but anytime I'm flipping through LinkedIn, I would see a post inevitably, about United Metal. I mean, literally, man, they're all the time. Like, so what that does from an outsider's perspective, and I think everybody can understand this, you start seeing that story, that person, they're posting continuously. And, once you read an interesting piece of content, you see a picture, and you see another picture and you start scanning it, it becomes that name, United Metals Recycling, it becomes a thing in your mind that maybe you didn't know before. Like, I mean, I'd only heard of you and learned about you through social media. I've only been to Idaho once as a 9-year-old kid. So, but I think it's really amazing. It does take time and effort, but I think what you said is really important, that, you don't really need to hire a marketing company. You just need to be genuine, right? Just put your stuff out there and don't make it all about just like, hey, look at all these great moments that we've had at our company. It's also, people on social media like to hear a story. They want to know about the people, right?
Yep.
That's what I've seen work for you. And you've been like an example of what I've also learned, from my marketing people about like how you get this thing going on social media. And I see your posts a lot. So you really got that one, hit that one right on there.
And we have a great team of people that are behind the scenes, like one of the best things we ever did was every year we do a photo contest, intercompany photo contest, right? Okay. So we basically, at our company, we do a once a year company dinner, usually around the holidays. If anybody can submit a photo or a video, right? If you're outside working and you're running the Cinnabogan or you're driving truck or whatever you're doing, you pull your truck over and you take a cool picture of the landscape with your truck in the background, or, the sun's rising and you're crushing cars, take a picture, anything that is scrap related, truck related, pipe related. We allow everybody to submit photos, right? And we do a big annual photo contest.
Cool.
So we pay our guys, like the top 5-10 pictures, we give them real money at the company dinner. But what
Nice.
that does is it encourages them, A, to take pride in what they're doing, but B, it helps us generate content so we can show people what we're doing every day, like from the angle of the people that are actually doing the work, I mean, I can't drive around and take pictures of every single thing, what's going on, right? And neither can our guys in the background that are, helping us create content for our social media. But the more pictures, the more content that's getting submitted, about what's going on out there, it just helps everybody's cause.
That's cool.
And I think, and it kind of creates that camaraderie, internally that that can benefit you from a culture standpoint, but also just from your social media standpoint, and getting people kind of dialed in and thinking about, how to promote the positive things that you guys are doing every day.
Yeah, that's really cool. What about, that's a great tip, because photos are the thing that really spreads well on social media, right? People can look at them, like them. This is what Facebook wants, what LinkedIn likes to have, and also original content. Like you said, I think Facebook, I'm not sure, but I'm guessing Facebook, LinkedIn, they're also looking to see out on the web, like, Google image search, did they get this from stock photo, or is this something, new? And I'm sure it does better. So that's a real cool program that you've got, or a little contest you got internally. It's really awesome. What about, are you active on Twitter any?
I just never really figured that one out. I've kind of looked at it, and I'm just, I'm not a tech guru by any stretch. I've got guys in our company that are really smart, that are good at some of that stuff, that have kind of showed me the way in some of this stuff. But really what I'm always doing is, I feel like probably marketing is one of my stronger points. I'm not super mechanical. There's guys out there that could tear a diesel motor down today and rebuild that thing back in a few days. And they're just very mechanical. They understand the engineering side of stuff. And that's not my strong point. My strong point is just looking at the market or the industry and just kind of saying, okay, and then trying to apply what maybe others are doing outside of, our industries, and trying to figure out how can I work those things that are working for other industries into what we're doing to kind of help us build our business, whether it's on the marketing side or whether it's on the actual day-to-day business side. So I think that's probably more my strong point, is not necessarily being tech savvy as much as it's just being aware of my surroundings, right? What's going on that's working out there. And I think that's what I'm always on the hunt for. I listen to a lot of podcasts, I pay attention to what people are doing, in other industries, just because I'm like looking for, I don't want to call, but arbitrage type opportunities, right? Where it's like, hey, we can do this here and it can be effective. And just like what I heard it said one time, instead of defending your fortress, right? Defending your fort all day, go out and try and put yourself out of business. Like, what's the next thing that's coming? Figure out how to get ahead of it, and try it. I mean, shit, it may not work, but it might. And if it does, you're ahead, right? You kind of beat somebody else to the punch. And I think we're not afraid to try. We're not afraid to fail and go for it.
Right. Yeah, that's super important, right? That's kind of the mantra of the startup, world, is basically, fail fast, fail hard, and so you want to get out there. You want to basically try everything you can, and you want to have those failures, And so basically, if you're sitting back and you're comfortable and you're not trying new things, well, you're never going to innovate, I would say, basically, right?
Yeah. So, I started an auto auction. I was buying a lot of cars, and I was like, dude, I'm going to start my own auto auction, right? So I started buying cars, piling them into inventory, and we had this great plan of, we had the property, we ran the auto auction, then we ran it like 3 times, and it was just like an utter failure. Like, Talk about like losing money real quick, on cars. But
so I take it you didn't buy those cars for scrap value, but some of them might have ended up scrap.
No, I was buying them at other auctions. I was going to re-auction them, and I had this great idea, and it was going to work, and it was it was a failure, right? But once it failed, we ran it for a while. It sucked. It was a money loser. We moved on, and we owned it. We said, "Yep." It seemed like a good idea at the time, but it didn't work out, right? And I think that's us in a nutshell. Like for every win we've had, I think we've had a couple of failures along the way. So but we're still steadfast in our willingness to just try.
Yeah, awesome. Man.
And social media and marketing is the same thing, right? I think where people get hung up is if you make a video today, right? And let's say it sucks. Like tomorrow, nobody's going to care about they remember that video.
That's true.
They already forgot about you. Like make another one, unless it's something just crude or racist or something that, gets you a bunch of unwanted attention you weren't looking for, but I mean, if you make a good video today, like great, but you better make a better one tomorrow or another one tomorrow, because they already forgot about the one you made yesterday or the post you made yesterday. You gotta, I mean, you gotta keep going, and you gotta,
it's a different world.
It's new. It's just marketing, right? It's branding. And if your brand is your reputation, people think of United Metals, I want them to think like, hey, we're not the biggest recycling company, nor do I have any desire to be some huge recycling company. I just want to be the best at what I do, where I'm at, in the industries I'm in. And I'm willing to go hard at my little niche, and I think that's all I ever want to communicate is I'm never going to be a Sims or a Schnitzer or one of these huge companies that's worldwide or coast to coast. I mean, I'm pretty comfortable in our certain industries, and one thing that we are going to be is the best in our area at doing what we do, and I think that's the way we look at it.
That's awesome, Brett. Well, man, listen, I appreciate your time. This has been really interesting to have a talk with you, have a chat with you. I appreciate you being the first person on our podcast series.
Yeah, man, I appreciate the opportunity.
That's everybody should know that this is, I take my inspiration from Brett's podcast. If you haven't checked it out, Scrap Life. It's quite interesting, cool. Well, you want to maybe summarize what you're after with the Scrap Life for everyone?
I started Scrap Life. I mean, I had the first podcast I started was I had bought a pipe reline company in Indiana. And so we were trying to bring awareness to that business. And so we started interviewing individuals that were in the reline industry, and which was great. I mean, we have a pipe company. I'm interested in that world, but my real passion was scrap, right? So it was kind of my way of learning how to do a podcast and how to interview people, and it's kind of my way of trial and error.
Good.
And so I always knew I was going to do a scrap podcast, but I wanted it to be about people in the industry that were like passionate about the industry, right? I wanted it to be people that, came from nothing and they just scratched their way and built a business, or they built a career. We've interviewed people in our company that started at the bottom, right? Guys that started running cans a guy that handles all the marketing, all the purchasing for our company. He ran cans for 2 years, fucking aluminum cans, nasty beer, dead animals in those cans for 2 years, and just worked his way up, right? And dude, that guy, I've talked about somebody that has that's just a scrappy individual. That's the evolution of the podcast for me down the road, is just individuals who are just scrappy. Like they're just gritty, tough. They take chances. Sometimes they fail, sometimes they win. But right now it's just basically, I like having people on there that got the good old rust in their veins, and they're just hard, like they're just females, males, like they just go hard and they they love the industry as much as I do.
That's awesome. Yeah, well, I'm happy to have been one of your guests, Brett.
Yeah, it was great.
And yeah, I enjoyed it. So yeah, because I definitely have the rust in my veins. That's 100% for sure. I can tell you that. I've been we had a long talk about that as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. And once you get it in, it's hard to shake it. It's hard to get it out.
I don't know if it's possible, to be honest with you.
You need like a blood transfusion.
Maybe. All right. Hey, Brett, I'm gonna let you go, bud. Thanks so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat.
Thank you, man. I appreciate the opportunity, and I'm glad to see that the conference is going well.